Welcome to the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast. My name is Troy Singer.
And I'm Bart Kaler.
And today we get to talk about a favorite topic that we have, and it's the ZeeMee's app. As you know, Bart talks a lot about watering holes, and we both agree that the ZeeMee's app is one of the most effective and important watering holes that your students are having conversations in.
Yeah, I've known ZeeMee's for many years now, and they've been a good partner with us. And I think one of the things that I really like about it, as you said, Troy, it's a watering hole for, traditional undergrad students. And so as you kind of think about, we talk about in my book, Chasing Mission Fit, the idea of all these watering holes and the places that you need to find where your mission fit students are. Guess what? They're already on ZeeMee's. I mean, it's a leading social media app. They're already on there talking only about where they're going to go to college. And so it makes sense for schools and colleges to be a part of that. And I think that our friends at ZeeMee's today have pulled together a couple individuals to help kind of tell the story of how they're leveraging the ZeeMee's app and being able to, kind of lean into that and to be able to have a conversation with students. I mean, so many times we get into this transactional mode of getting information out as opposed to being able to have the conversations, which we used to be able to have when we would have phone calls and other ways. So it's great to have Jennifer and Luke on the call today to kind of unpack all that and talk about it from their perspective as VPs of Enrollment and Marketing.
Yes, Jennifer McChord, Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Asbury University, has been on the podcast before. We both consider her a friend. We've also got to meet Luke Franklin, Executive Director of Traditional Enrollment Admissions Center, Olivet, Nazarene University. Both of them do an excellent job of conveying not only their excitement, but also the effectiveness that they are having with the ZeeMee's app. And without further ado, here's our conversation with Jennifer and Luke. We're going to kick this conversation off with these two dynamic marketing and enrollment leaders by asking them, and Luke, I'm going to ask you to be the first one to kick this off. If you have something that you've learned recently that would be considered fun or interesting that you would like to share with our listeners.
Yes, we had an experience. One of my top kind of recruiters in my office has a son who's a high school senior, and he is out making college visits right now. And so one of the things we had him do was I had him write up a little report when he visited another school. And also Dad, who works for me, kind of came back to the office and shared with our team. And I will just say, I think from, our work, we have all these families who visit all of the time. And it is kind of easy to go, here's the ones I know and here's the ones I don't. But their visit there, the depth of the analysis of the things that they were being insightful about and taking notes on, and kind of a little comment said here or a little comment said there really went a long way towards winning or not winning the individual family. And specifically the way that this school, it was a great visit, but they kind of treated mom and dad a little bit differently on the visit. And that was noticed specifically by the parents. And so it was really an insight. In fact, I actually had him come and talk to our team a little bit because I just thought it was important to know just how important it is to be intentional and insightful with the little things that matter when we're talking about prospective students and their families. And I know we always say that, but then you hear someone kind of go, oh yeah, this is actually a pretty big deal for me. And you go, wow, how many of those big deals are on our campus visits, and some of those different pieces. So it was a fascinating exercise, by the way, to do. And I would recommend it for anyone to just kind of like dig in a little bit, never get too far away from the people who are right in that same journey that our prospective students are on.
Thank you. Jennifer.
One of the things I keep being reminded of every day we're in Kentucky and as the weather is turning warmer and the trees are blooming, the students' moods are lightening, even though their workload is getting heavier, but the days are longer. The intramural games are going longer. There's pickleball happening. There was an Easter egg hunt out on our lawn the other day, and just the excitement of being on a college campus in the spring. And what happens with that, just the new life, the new steps, the new milestones being achieved as seniors leave to go on their next steps and freshmen are moving up to sophomores and all the newness that happens after a hard winter. The spring is so amazing to be on a college campus. And, just as you all are listening and as we are talking to our peers, I think one of the things I've just really been reminded of in this season is to be in the moment. and just to really enjoy these students while they're here. They're going to be gone here in a couple months or a couple of weeks, and it's going to be a little bit quiet this summer, or just a different flow in the summer. So as these students are here and as they are out and sitting out on the lawn and talking about next steps and what they're going to do this summer and just the excitement of newness, I would just encourage all of us to remember to not be quite so busy and take that extra moment to be in the moment for just a little bit. As you walk across campus, take an extra second to talk to a student, a graduating senior, and really be able to encourage more and more while they're still here. It's been a really refreshing time over the last couple of weeks. So I'm just looking forward to more.
I love that. I think we can be done. Thank you for joining us today. So that was so good. That was so good, Jennifer.
And scene, as they say. Thank you for that wonderful response. And personally, you took me back to the Oval, which is in the middle of Ohio State University, and the excitement that I still remember when springtime came and everyone kind of congregated in the Oval. And that was over 30 years ago.
Oh, just yesterday, Troy.
Bless you again. We are all here because we are fans of the ZeeMee app. Bart and I would like to highlight some of the innovative approaches colleges and universities utilize the ZeeMee app. If you listen to the podcast, you know that Bart talks about watering holes and meeting students where they are. And if you're not familiar with how colleges and institutions lean into that, I think we have two wonderful individuals that have experience and have had success in utilizing this app, that most college-age students are already using. So I'm going to ask for Jennifer, before we get into our specific questions, if you have an overall thought on how utilizing ZeeMee is helping you at Asbury University.
Oh, I absolutely think it's helping us. It's helping our enrollment cycle. I believe it's working on building the community on the front end before the students actually get here. One of the stories I tell often is once we started using the ZeeMee app 2 years ago, last year at our scholarship competition and this year at our scholarship competition, and then our summer orientations, our whole team overheard many squeals of joy as students saw their ZeeMee friends in person for the first time. It is such a joy to watch these relationships develop before they actually get to campus, and then get to see them in person and connecting in person, even just stepping on the campus as the summer before their freshman year. And what that's done for our freshman class this year has been incredible to see how connected they are even at welcome weekend, because they've spent months before getting to know each other in a place that is really comfortable for them, and it's how they want to be communicated and how they're building community anyway. So it's been a huge benefit for us.
How about you, Luke?
Yeah, similar. We're actually like a little bit earlier on the journey than Jennifer and Asbury, so we're really excited. We had just started ZeeMee at the beginning, kind of finishing up the recruitment year, like the incoming class of 23, and then had it fully up and going. So even just seeing the engagement student to student in the community body, and also getting really excited for what the spring and summer means with summer orientation and roommate assignments and stuff. It's already fixed things that we had prioritized and done more than we thought it would. And so to be in that spot is great. And we can't wait for May and June and July and August and to kind of some of the stuff Jennifer's talking about.
That's great. Hey, Troy, can I take a second just to help our audience understand exactly what ZeeMee is? Because sometimes I'll talk to schools and they're like, what's ZeeMee? I've never heard of that. So I just want to take a brief second, because the way I always describe it is it's like if you go to the app store on your Galaxy or on your Apple phone and you look at social media and you start going down, you're going to see TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. You're going to go down the list. And by the time you get around 16th, 17th, you're going to see ZeeMee. And what ZeeMee is a social media app designed for students who are going to college to just learn about colleges. It's where they go to talk about college. Where are you going to go? What are you thinking about? What schools you're looking at? So it's a place where students are already gathering. It's kind of, gotten very popular with Gen Z undergrad students over the past several years. And it's a place that they just know and inherently from other students and other friends who say, hey, you ought to be on ZeeMee and go do this. And the great thing about ZeeMee is that they have that side of their market. And then they also have the side of the colleges who, if they choose to participate, they can go in and add some additional ability to engage with those students. All the colleges in the United States and Canada are already on the ZeeMee platform. It's just a matter of, are you, joining in with ZeeMee to help communicate with them? And so a lot of times I'll show schools, I'm like, hey, are you in ZeeMee? They're like, what's that? And we'll pull it up. And I'm like, well, look, they've got 150 students that are talking about your school. Maybe you ought to be talking with them. And so that's what ZeeMee is. And I thought that might be important for us as we start to unpack this a little bit, so everybody has a common knowledge of that.
Thank you, Bart. That was very helpful. And it also sets up of what we are going to be talking about. It's less of the interaction of the students, cause that's already happening and that's happening in a big way, but it's how the schools can take part and benefit from those conversations and the interaction with the students that are on the ZeeMee app. With that, one of the things we like to do is kind of prop up how identifying the need for ZeeMee would be beneficial for a school. In light of the recent challenges, such as the FAFSA delays, could you share how these have impacted your strategies and led you towards ZeeMee?
Yeah, it is a great question. Okay, so I'm going to say something that I think everyone's going to relate to right away, which is that I think we have all felt that in the past couple of years, the traditional enrollment steps that are like normally indicative of our funnel are less predictive than they've ever been. And so it means that in short, it's kind of like, okay, it doesn't mean the same thing to be accepted. It doesn't mean the same thing to apply that it used to. And so we, for years, had this kind of like pillar, which was, okay, the FAFSA being in is a pretty big deal, right? If we have a student who's visited and deposited and they have a financial aid offer, that means something to us, right? It means something predictively to us. And from a strategy standpoint, right, you're kind of looking at those sorts of things. Along comes this year, and one of those pillars that's holding up that predictive just kind of disappears altogether. In fact, it's promised but never materializes, I guess is a better way of saying it, right?
And promised again and promised
and promised again and promised again. And then even today, there's all sorts of different pieces. So that pillar kind of not being there, you go, okay, what are we going to replace that with? As far as having a realistic measure of is a student still engaged with our community? Are they engaged with the idea of coming here? Because, and that was really, really what it became, is like using that from a pure data standpoint to measure the engagement of students and their engagement with the university and where we fall in those levels. Because as we know, you can kind of get into the spring and it can go kind of radio silence in some ways. And you don't really know if the students are going, hey, I can't wait to get there. Or, I made my visit in October, I can't wait to get there. Or, hey, I'm kind of having my doubts about that now. So ZeeMee, from a pure data standpoint, which I love, I'm big on the data, has been really, really helpful with that. But that is just like identifying the issue problem. So then we also have this really strong desire when we identify issues to solve them and to go, that's a red flag along the way of my enrollment journey for this year. And so how are we going to solve that? And that is where ZeeMee has also been helpful when you talk about specifically with the FAFSA delays. I think sometimes we struggle to know exactly where our families are at with the questions that they're having. But literally this year, it was February, the FAFSA confusion was at its top peak. And I sat with our director, who kind of runs ZeeMee for us in a lot of ways and is engaged with the student influencers. And we're scrolling through some of the general chats, and there's students literally having FAFSA conversations on there, which is like exactly what you want listening in. And one's going, hey, I think they're coming soon. And someone says, well, they told me February. And someone else said, no, I think it got delayed to March. And there's like 10 students literally, and it gave us this opportunity to step in and go, hey, we're so glad you guys are talking about FAFSA. Can we summarize in 3 quick points what we want everyone to know right here? Now, I know that sounds like almost too good to be true, but it happened. And so I was like, it's like, okay, if we answered it for those 10 students, probably 400 students saw that. Yep. And needed to have that response. So from those 2 points, from a purely strategy standpoint, 2 big things. It'll gives us more data about where our students' engagement are at and helps me kind of have some more predictive pieces. And 2, when you have an issue and you're needing to communicate and drive engagement or answer some problems or clarify some confusion, we've used it to that capacity as well.
I would definitely agree with Luke wholeheartedly. We're using it in the same fashion, and it is wild to see that a student that our counselor has reached out to a number of times, has texted, has emailed, kind of radio silence right now because there's really nothing for them to respond to, right? We're just kind of trying to stay in touch right now. We'll go on ZeeMee and see exactly what Luke sees. Is they're talking about getting a roommate. They're talking about, the equine program. They're talking about how excited they are that the men's and women's basketball team is in the national NCCAA. It's like, what is happening? And it's just really interesting to watch how Gen Z interacts with each other, and then how they interact with what seems like older people, right? Or authorities. Yeah. And so ZeeMee has allowed us that opportunity to just kind of have a sneak peek into what maybe are they really thinking. The other thing it's allowed us to do is exactly what Luke was saying, is seeing that happening in ZeeMee. But it's allowed us to fill what we're calling a lull in the enrollment cycle. Our normal enrollment cycle, February, March, April-ish is really predictive. You do the same thing. You're having lots of phone conversations. We've trained our counselors. They spend the spring talking about financial aid and how can we help, and have you thought about, and all of those questions, right? Handling objections and all the things. But there hasn't been those conversations other than estimates, right? So we've been able to organically and strategically go in and start conversations with our student ambassadors, with our influencers, with current students. The one thing that happens year 2 after being a ZeeMee school is the students who came here and they learned ZeeMee, they got connected to Asbury through ZeeMee as a prospective student, they don't go away, which is great, because those students have actually jumped into the chat on their own and given life to what's happening on campus. And, so sorry you all are having the FAFSA delays, but let me tell you what's going on campus. And those are happening just peer-to-peer, organically. So it's really helped the lull of the enrollment cycle right now to continue that conversation going without spending lots of money on postcards and without adding more email drip campaigns, which we have done those things, but they are actually engaging in the peer-to-peer conversations.
That's great. I was on a campus yesterday, a university. It's actually one of the top 25 universities in the country. I was doing a keynote speaking on artificial intelligence, and I had a chance to sit in. They had an all-day marketing event, and I sat in on one of the student panels of, why are you not opening your emails? It was kind of, and so the students were talking about the way that they want to be communicated with. And, obviously they don't have the same email etiquette as we do as older, millennials or Xers or boomers. They don't open their email. I still have to text my kids like, hey, I just sent you an email. Can you open your email and look at it? So they don't do that. They don't like people getting into their texting world because they feel like that's my private world. And one guy even said, I have 2 buckets in my texting, my friends and spam. And he said, so if you text me, you're not my friend, so I guess you're my spam. And I was like, well, that's really binary, dude. And it's just the way he was thinking about it. But then also they talked about, just these other ways. And the thing I go back to, it's like, as they were talking about, what about TikTok? What about Instagram? What about these things? And they all had these rules of the way that they want to engage. But what I think is so incredible about ZeeMee is that they're flocking to that. That's where they're at. That's what they're doing. It's their world. And so having Jennifer, you and your team, or Luke, you and your team in there, it's just part of it. And they understand that. And they understand that you're there to help them to navigate this. And so I think that's what makes this such an incredible tool and opportunity, is because you still have to do the other things. I'm not saying that you don't, but it does give you a way to kind of get that additional insight that you can't sometimes get in the other places.
It gives an avenue for a student to engage with as much or as little as they want. Whereas before it was kind of one size fits all with what the communication pieces were. But now if a student says, well, I want to spend an hour in the evening communicating with other students who I'm going to be here with, they can max that all the way up, and they can create groups and they can engage as much or as little as they want to, which was not a resource we had otherwise to do that. It's not one size fits all now. It's one size fits one.
Yeah.
So that was that point about them wanting to jump in at their pace and get involved with the app at their level and their engagement. It doesn't turn them off because when they open it, they're expecting themselves to jump in and be engaged.
Right. And they can still get the notifications that you're sending to them as the group, which they're already engaged in the app. So they're reading those and then seeing those, as opposed to ignoring them or not picking up the telephone because they're scared to death to talk on their phone. And so there you go.
I'll ask this next question of Jennifer, and then of course Luke will ask you to chime in after. But what sparked the decision to integrate ZeeMee, and how has it redefined engagement for you?
2 years ago, we realized pretty quickly that we were communicating with students the way we wanted to, which was email and text. So Bart, to your point earlier, we were very comfortable with how we were communicating. And we were doing that really well. If you were judging or evaluating our reports on how many emails we were sending, how many texts, and not looking at open rates or conversion rates or anything of like, is this valuable to anyone? If you're looking at pure quantity of communication being sent out, we were doing it. However, when we started realizing that we weren't in the places where our prospective students wanted us to be, or that that conversation was even happening, we quickly made that jump to ZeeMee once we found out about it. And that was one of the reasons is ZeeMee is exactly the way they want to be communicated to and with. They don't want to be talked to. They want to be a part of the conversation. They want it to be organic and authentic. They don't want the sales pitch. They want the experience.
Yeah.
And that is really the way ZeeMee works. I mean, there is no PR or marketing team out there that can manage a crafted ZeeMee experience.
No.
It's just not going to happen. That's not the way. So one, from a marketing perspective, control person, you have to be okay with letting the students talk and letting them absolutely share their experience and being okay with it. And when you have a great experience, it's easier to be okay with that, right? But there are things that are in there that a student will share and you're like, okay, that's not exactly what they meant, but we'll go with it. But it is just an authentic, organic experience. And I think for a lot of us, we have great university tours with student ambassadors, with tour groups. When students come to campuses, they really feel connected to those students. This allows that same connection with some of those same students or others, current students and prospective students, to just continue. So I kind of explain it as take the best of what you offer, which is usually a tour or a campus visit. And this allows that to be portable and in their hand and exactly where they want it to be when they want it.
Yep.
And that's been the most valuable to us.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way I like to think about it. If you're kind of in the enrollment cycle and you're kind of going through the process of thinking about what the students are experiencing and you're kind of solving problems and all these different elements, you end up with a set of priorities they're kind of non-urgent but important. But the longer they sit there, they become urgent. And so what we were experiencing was kind of the same world that Jennifer was, where that kind of every year we were feeling about that pressure to build community for students and to let them have kind of, we call the Olivet experience on board into that even before move-in. And every year we'd get to the point we'd kind of make it a little bit better. We'd patch it over a little bit, but none of us were really happy with it. And so after about, enough years of that, maybe 2 years, we kind of said, this is enough. We need to look at a solution for this, right? That allows students to really engage earlier. And part of that's just because we love them so much and they'll visit in the fall and you don't hear from them again. And it's like they could have another whole year of kind of some aspects of the experience if they can jump in early. And so after repeating that process for a little bit, we started doing analysis and looking around and seeing what options were out there. ZeeMee kind of rose to the top, not just because they do a great job with kind of customer care, but also we had some sister institutions that really spoke really highly of them. And you guys will know there's just kind of an unlimited number of vendors and options to solve any problem. So when someone who you trust says, this has worked well for us, man, that kind of skyrockets up to the top. And so it's taken a little time to kind of build the right rhythm and for us to establish what we want with it. And anything that's worth doing is hardly ever is easily done quickly. And so there's been a little bit of that kind of process of onboarding, and we're constantly improving. And I hope we're better with the app, and the engagement is better with our students a year from now than it is now, but it's definitely better than it was 6 months or 9 months ago. And so it really kind of, if you're in that same spot, that's where we were when we decided to go, hey, it's time to solve this and give our students, build that community before they even, they don't need to make friends when they're walking into their dorm and figuring out who the roommate is. Those days don't need to be here anymore.
Yeah. And that's what they expect. I mean, they expect that everywhere else that they're at. And so I think the fact that ZeeMee's providing that opportunity, and it goes back a little bit, and Troy, I'm sorry, this is going to sound like a shameless plug, but it really isn't. When I wrote my book about, finding watering holes, I have a book called Chasing Mission Fit. And one of the premises is that your mission fit students that are going to fit your institution, because you know who you are, they are going to be out there. There's places, there's watering holes where they're already naturally, they're out there having conversations. You need to figure out where those watering holes are and go find them. And I think ZeeMee's a really good watering hole for a lot of schools. There are people out there that are already talking about you, that are already there. It's just a natural place for you to go to find them. And I think, to both Luke and Jennifer's point, I think that the platform provides a lot of tools and a lot of opportunities for another way to get engaged with the students in ways that are probably a little bit more engaging and personal than what you might be able to do through other traditional means of marketing.
So with ZeeMee's influence across the whole enrollment funnel, Jennifer, could you share how it's become a critical asset, especially considering the unique challenges of this yield season?
Yeah, this season is, of course, going to have the biggest asterisk on it on all of our numbers and reports for the, for the next decade. And it is a challenge. It's not only a challenge for our teams and us personally as leaders and admissions teams and marketing teams, but it's a challenge for our parents and our prospective students. So the more that we can communicate with both of those audiences using the tools available, it goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. It fills the void. It fills that lull of next steps. Most enrollment cycles, you're always moving through the funnel, or the next step is always really evident, and it's pretty tight window, 6 weeks here, 8 weeks here, 12 weeks here, and it's quick. This has been quite painful for all of us. And so as we can continue in a ZeeMee platform for our prospective students to keep that energy up, to keep those relationships going, to kind of keep their mind off of the negativity of what could start bubbling over, and that we're all in this together. Like every university that you are looking at right now is dealing with this. This isn't just one university or 10 or a subset of universities. This is everyone. And so they're hearing a lot of that. So it allows us to change the conversation a bit, and to get in there and fill that lull, and just continue to build that relationship, take them back to the excitement parts, remind them of why they're excited, or remind them of what they really liked about that university experience when they visited or as they become to visit. So that's how we've been using it. And I think that's the benefit of any time there's something outside of the university's control, whether it's the Department of Ed or it's something within our environment. ZeeMee gives a really great place to communicate well and to keep that relationship being built, and really be able to monitor and build that excitement ongoing without having to do other things that take more time, money, resources to do those things.
Let me jump in here from my side just a little bit to kind of, Jennifer, I think you said it really, really well there, which is one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is how much of our communication with students after they visit and after they've seen some aspects of the school is entirely about taking another step, a transactional step. And to be honest, there's some excitement with those steps. It can be exciting to figure out your roommate. It can be exciting to figure out your class schedule. It's less exciting to figure out your first payment, right? But there's some different aspects of these transactional pieces. But what I've noticed is that has become you have to be really careful, right? Because your team's communication can primarily be about taking the next step to get here, with this assumption that they want to be here without the reminder of why. Right. So the reason we're excited about taking the next step for whatever product or experience we're excited about is like, okay, well, I'm willing to work through these steps, but these steps are not actually the thing I'm excited about. And so if you have admissions counselors, you have comm flows, and yes, of course, there's, confidence campaigns, and there's some things you can do with emails and videos and communication. Absolutely. We all have done that for years. But this idea of going, hey, my team has actually helped me understand this and push back a little bit, where I go, hey, why aren't we using ZeeMee to push this step? And they're like, that's not what it's for, by the way. Yeah. You have to keep it sacred away from that, because you dominated their text, and you already dominated their emails, and you're already telling them to take these next steps. Would you leave them a space where they can be reminded of what they're excited about and what their experience is about? You will have a better chance of them taking the next step if they spend 30 minutes on ZeeMee engaging with future friends than you will by reminding them 30 times to take this next step. And that has been kind of eye-opening from our side of going, and by the way, ZeeMee is really good about that, right? About saying, hey, there's all these other companies you're going to work with, and all these other companies treat students in some ways as a commodity, as a resource, and we'll give you access to them if you're the college. That's not ZeeMee, right? ZeeMee is like, they are the customer, not the school. And so it's really refreshing, by the way. It's really refreshing to get into that a little bit and to see that and to go, that's exactly right, is that they're carrying the water of casting the vision of what your experience is here in some ways, because it's, Jennifer, exactly what you said. They're engaging with our ambassadors, our students, right? And even at an organic level, we have these influencers, but we're not really guiding a lot of, it's kind of like, hey, can you show what your world looks like? And so I'm on there looking, and it's like this hilarious video of them playing intramural volleyball and the team going, losing 2 straight games, but still being hilarious in the moment, right? And then a student going, hey, I was at Orpheus Choir, kind of our choir concert today, and I recorded 30 seconds of it and stuff. And you go, this is just kind of really, really powerful, and is so much more powerful than a formatted email going, did you know you have 2 of 7 steps left to do?
I totally agree. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Luke, because I was getting ready to make a comment about that we are so used to doing transactional, the next step that everything in our marketing sometimes ends up being transactional. I mean, part of that is what we're supposed to do. I mean, that's part of making sure that we're checking the boxes and moving things forward. We can't not do that. But I think if we're not having the opportunities to have those conversations, I mean, back in the day, I'm going to sound like grandpa, but it's back in the day. I mean, you would actually be able to talk with students. They would answer the home phone. You might have a short conversation with mom. That doesn't happen anymore. And so we have to find those places where those conversations can happen naturally, and they're actually happening amongst themselves, which is even better than having, as you guys talked about, the authority or, grandpa reaching in and saying, hey, let me tell you about this. And so I think that you being able to utilize your students, your ambassadors, and I think to Jennifer's point, it can be a little scary because we are giving up a little bit of control. But I think at the end of the day, you both are kind of indicating that's a trade that's worthwhile to make.
Yep. And especially if you, and I'm sure Jennifer will have the same thing too, if you are as inspired as I am every time I interact with our students, it's like, ZeeMee goes, hey, you have to kind of trust your student body to communicate and engage. And I go, oh, actually, when I see that happening, I absolutely do. I may have some control issues myself that I have to work through, right? Jennifer, we have a little bit of that, right? But when I actually see it in place, I go, that's perfect. That's better than I would have ever been able to manufacture, right? Our students are gold. They're amazing. They're a big part of the experience itself. So yes, you're absolutely right about that.
That's great.
This next very important question might put you on the spot, and I won't dictate who answers it first, but it's been prompted to me to ask who you feel the coolest person at ZeeMee is.
Oh, that's not fair. And I think I know who asked you that question. They are all cool. How about that? Every person I have interacted with, whether it's on a trade show floor and it's the staff there, or it's the executive team, they are all so personable, so real, so professional. But what I love about them the most is it's a consistent mission to engage the student and put the prospective student at the center. And if they can help the university at that, that's great. But they really care for that prospective student and helping them get the information that they want, when they want it, where they want it, and how they want it. And I love this team. They are an amazing team to work with.
Unlike Jennifer, I'm not going to cop out. I have a name.
They will love that.
All right, so there are some amazing people there. My guy is Tyler. Tyler is my guy, right? Like Tyler and I connected early, and we were at a conference, and we ended up just kind of chatting when everyone else left. So he's amazing, and we text and we connect about work all the time, which is great. But Tyler is definitely not as cool as Soup, who is way, way cooler of an individual. He's amazing and teaches the team. And so he's way cooler. Tyler, sorry, man, you're my guy. I love it. But Soup is amazing at kind of working with our team and brings the coolness even through. It's hard to be cool through a Zoom, and he manages it, so they really are an outsized team. My thing that I always share with them is you do receive outsized customer care from ZeeMee. Like, we all have partners and vendors, and sometimes these categories are mixed, and we all have different budgets, amounts, and stuff. And the care that we receive from them is outsized, I would say, compared to kind of the size of what we're doing with some other people and some of the other industry leaders and stuff. They really do care. And you can feel it from the beginning, and even all the transactional ones. I'm never going, hey, can we get together and talk about renewal? Because I'm working on next fiscal year. It's never that, right? They're always on top of it. And that's refreshing and needed when you're in our seats.
Yeah. Well, make sure that you go to Tyler's LinkedIn profile. He has a really nice dance move that he did with AI.
Oh,
and
does
so
he?
That might add to his cool factor.
Okay,
I
I'll
told
check
him
that out.
He said his daughters were very embarrassed, and I said, well, at least you didn't use Taylor Swift songs. So there you go. So,
And for everyone, that is Soup Harrison and Tyler Groper, and we'll make sure we put their LinkedIn links into the show notes. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I think we are all authentic fans of ZeeMee, and I think even more of fans of how it affects what we do as marketers and enrollment leaders. So as we bring our show to a close, would like to ask each of you, and I'll start out with Luke, if you could recap your feeling or maybe the transformational role that ZeeMee has made since it's been on campus, or maybe the one takeaway from it that you feel others should know that would benefit them.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so what I'd say I learned kind of throughout the process is you bring them on. It's really good. ZeeMee is, like many other things in our world, as powerful as you're willing to make it. Mm-hmm. And so what I would say is be ready to kind of invest the resources, because when we very first launched it, and by the way, now that I think back, kind of ZeeMee really helped coach us through this, but we're wanting to build engagement with students, but there's this, and some of that will happen naturally by itself, but you have the ability to kind of level up and crank that to 10 if you're really intentional about it. And so we had initially decided to kind of go, okay, well, we're going to add this responsibility to several different people. And that's just really hard if they haven't captured the vision for it and they didn't experience ZeeMee on the way in. And so what we did about halfway through our first year was we pivoted and we actually hired ZeeMee's just kind of specific student workers, right? And they're not necessarily paid, but our influencers are kind of like cast the vision for them first. And then we also have a communication specialist who we didn't have before, who captured that vision right at the front end. And it has, I'm telling you, I am encouraged when I look at the ZeeMee app and see our school, because it is like one of the absolute best resources, in addition to some of our campus life pages out there about like on the ground what's happening. I love that our counselors are in it. I love that our new student financial aid team is in it, because they're literally in there experiencing some of that. And so it's so fun to be in there and to see what's happening at the grassroots level of a college like Olivet, which is incredible. And so if you have that same type of thing, I would definitely encourage, ZeeMee is great by itself. Even if you don't touch it at all, ZeeMee will allow students to communicate with each other, but it's like literally life-giving to have students who are going, sure, if part of my job is, twice a week, I'm just going to upload something fun from my life. That's amazing. We all need that. Like staff needs that, faculty needs that. So anyway, it's been personally powerful seeing what it could do.
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. And, one of the things I would say, if you are using ZeeMee and haven't utilized the live events function, if you are a ZeeMee user, I would say that is the first thing to do right away. Figure out how to do one on next week, just as soon as possible. The live events allow your student ambassadors or influencers or your admissions counselors to get in and do something fun with those students. I would be sure to make sure you're doing it after school hours. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock is a really good time that we found. But we've just done really fun trivia. We've done Christmas carols and Christmas movies and, what's your favorite Christmas snack? We've just done a lot of different things like that, and that don't have anything to do with our university, just completely getting to know each other. And that has shown a lot of engagement. It gets lots of excitement. They all start cross talking to each other. And those are really fun. And they move the needle and build the community really fast. So one, I would tell you live events. If you're not doing that and you're a ZeeMee customer, make sure you're doing those live events. If you're not a ZeeMee customer, I would say figure out as fast as possible how you create community and excitement within your prospective student pool. How do you get them to talk to each other? I don't know any other way other than ZeeMee. Maybe there is. I'm sure there is. But there may be an Instagram account you could build for admissions account or something of that nature to get to them so that you can connect where they are and how they want to be communicated to. That's the most important thing that we have seen, is that ZeeMee allows us to get into their phone portable and connect to them when they want to be and how they want to be. And that it has high value for this prospective student. So connection is figure out a way to connect personally and authentically and in a community space.
And just a clue, it is not Facebook groups anymore.
It is.
I recently had somebody ask me about that. I'm like, no, it's not Facebook groups. So we need to move on beyond 2010 or whatever. So
maybe for the parents.
You can definitely for the parents.
For the parents, you can do the Facebook group. There's where it is.
Yep, but not for students.
Thanks to both of you. We've had Jennifer McChord, Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Asbury University. And Jennifer, if you have a final thought that you would like to share, and if not, that's fine. But also, if someone would like to reach out and connect with you if they had further questions, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Absolutely. You can absolutely find me on LinkedIn. It's Jennifer McChord, and that is spelled a little strange. It has an H in the last name, so it's McChord. Or you can feel free to email me directly at my Asbury account, which is Jennifer, JENNIFER, .McChord, McChord, at asbury.edu. I'd be happy to talk.
Thank you. And we'll get that into the show
notes.
Luke,
how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to connect with anyone. So LinkedIn is probably the best, easiest spot. Luke Franklin, but it put Olivet in there because there's a lot of Luke Franklins. And so olivet.edu is our website, and you can find my email and my contact information, my full team on there as well. So olivet.edu for Olivet Nazarene University is the best way to kind of connect and engage with me.
Thank you both for being a part of this wonderful discussion. Bart, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would just encourage everybody to take a hard look. And even if you don't have ZeeMee at your school, download the app. Download the app and at least just get in there and kind of poke around. Take a look at what Olivet's doing. Take a look at what Asbury's doing. Look at some of the other folks that maybe you're cross-apping with, and just to kind of get a sense of it, so that I think that will help you understand a little bit more. And then look your own school up and say, wow, I didn't realize that many people are on there. And you probably will recognize some of the students because they might be the ones that you're already engaged with pretty deeply. I've done that. And, when I'll pull up different students to prospective or to my clients, they're like, oh, I know that student. That's why they're on there. They're leading the conversation. So I would just encourage you to take a look at that. Obviously, too, I'm sure Luke and Jennifer would love to talk to you more about that if you had any other questions and their results and how they're doing. And then certainly reach out to our friends at ZeeMee. Obviously, Tyler and Soup. Soup's the cooler one of the two, but you would want to reach out to them to talk more.
Tyler. Tyler. I'm so sorry, Tyler. I'll be your friend.
I was going to say, Tyler, that was Bart saying that. Troy loves you both.
Oh, I will get a lot of that next time. But thanks so much, Luke and Jennifer, for being on the podcast today.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
The Higher Ed Marketer podcast is brought to you by Kaler Solutions, your specialists in the field of educational marketing and branding, and by Ring Digital, the experts in ad targeting known for significantly improving response and yield by accurately targeting ads to the devices of the individuals on your enrollment and fundraising list. On behalf of our guest and Bart and myself, thank you for joining this wonderful conversation about ZeeMee.